Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's me again, it's Hassan here, and this time I'm in Medina. As you can see, behind me is the Mosque of the Prophet, where Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is buried, alongside his two companions and successors after him, Abu Bakr and Umar. May God be praised with them, who became the caliphs or leaders of Muslims after Muhammad's departure. Now, this I suppose is a follow-on video from the video I made yesterday when I was in Mecca. So today we arrived in Medina, the second holiest city, and it happens to be my favourite city in the world because of the peace, the sense of peace and serenity and security you do feel in Medina. But don't worry, yes, I love London and New York. They're my favourite places as well, but this certainly is at a higher plane. Now, so what else can I say as a follow-on from yesterday? I just hope that the makers of Islamicize Me will one day be able to visit Medina as well as Mecca. So, you know, never say never, God willing. And also, it was quite interesting during the videos that the actors, David Wood and his friends, wore the Islamic garb, you know, the thobe, and the hat, and wore sunglasses. That was absolutely brilliant, very, very funny, and I think it's probably a very realistic reflection of how Muslims would dress, or the Arabs would dress. So, so I suppose this is a response in kind. So I'm wearing Western clothes in one of the holiest cities in the world. Yesterday, again, I was wearing something similar in the holiest of holies. Okay, so this is interesting, isn't it? So that's thanks to globalization, people can wear Arab Muslim clothes in America. Likewise, people can wear Western clothes here in Arab countries and in Medina and Mecca. Anyway, and you may recall from yesterday's video in the Kaaba compound, I was scratching my head as to who we could have the equivalent of the Halal Hogan over in the Islamicize Me video if Muslims did stop producing videos responding to Judeo-Christianity or responding to the Bible. I couldn't think of anyone, but I have actually thought of someone, and it would be Kosher Kirk. The great thing about the 20th and 21st century is that not only do we have the iPhone, television, satellite TV, iPads, we had Star Trek, didn't we, in this era. So Captain Kirk is certainly one of my favourite characters. So Kosher Kirk probably would be the equivalent, the Muslim equivalent of Halal Hogan. And I say kosher because you know, the producers of Islamicize Me are Christians, so kosher probably wouldn't really appeal, or it wouldn't be relevant. But no, it is 100% relevant. When Jesus said, you know, keep the laws and commandments, he actually meant it. So the group of Christians who actually do follow the laws are actually the Messianic Jews who've accepted Jesus as the Messiah, but still follow and maintain the laws as required in the Old Testament. So good on them. So kosher, it's kosher all the way. Christians should be leading a kosher lifestyle. Okay, so Kosher Kirk, I'm sure, is a character that will be played out if Muslims did do such a video. So I look forward to that. But I think, you know, I hope that Muslims would have a much higher level of understanding and response in terms of the Islamicize Me videos. You know, just rise above it and just pray for our brothers in the Christian faith, for their guidance towards Islam and towards the truth. Now, when I've watched Christian missionaries engage with Muslims, whether it's in Hyde Park or through debates over the last 2 decades or so, Muslims should not be intolerant of our missionary friends. As I said yesterday, they mean very, very well. They want all of us, not just Muslims, but other non-Christians, to go to heaven. And likewise, we Muslims are very enthusiastic and very passionate of wanting our fellow human beings, including Christians, to go to the same destination as us. And I hope it will be paradise. That's the common destination the children of Adam and Eve should be headed towards. So so we can have debate and we can have a discourse, a dialogue, and I hope this actually continues. Finding commonalities, the Quranic approaches, find what is common between the religions, especially, you know, when referring to Christianity and Judaism, and also what's in common with other faiths. and that's how we can actually move forward. But I hope that Muslims can actually pray for our Christian brethren, especially the missionaries who are well versed in Muslim arguments. You know, whether you've researched Ahmed Didat or Zakir Naik, Shabir Ali, Jamal Badawi, and all the big speakers that come about recently, Muslim speakers. No doubt there would be workshops and classes within missionaries on how to respond to these Muslim arguments and get them to believe in Christ, or worship Christ rather. We do believe in Jesus, but worship Christ and also believe in the Trinity, the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. So I understand that passion, but we should be patient and argue in a good way, and may this camaraderie and this positive engagement with our Christian friends and Jews, Hindus, Sikhs, etc., Buddhists, and even atheists actually continue. What I want to say to the ex-Muslims, I think for the atheists generally, I've given a 1 minute or 2 minute response in my video when I was in the Kaaba compound. Now, in terms of further responses to ex-Muslims, because I have actually been following what they have been saying over the last few years, and the most noted ex-Muslims would be Introverted Smiles. He's certainly one of my favourites. Great sense of humour, very decent guy. I like his outlook, his passion, although obviously I would disagree with his views on Islam. Who else do I know of? Mufassal Islam, a Bengali guy. He preached Islam for 30 years before he left Islam 2 years ago after the Charlie Hebdo attacks, when he was very, very unfairly criticised, lambasted and threatened by Muslim extremists for producing a video that condemned terrorism or the terrorist attacks in Charlie Hebdo, against Charlie Hebdo. So that's why in effect, he was actually pushed out of Islam, and it's an absolute disgrace how this was actually done. Having preached Islam, probably going to fix all of the lights. Yeah. Okay. One thing I love about Mecca and Medina is some really modern machinery, really high-tech things happening around. Maybe that's we'll save for another video. Anyway. Yeah, so Mufassal Islam is absolutely disgraceful how he's been treated. His family have nothing to do with him leaving Islam, how they've been treated. And when some of these extremists say, oh, he's a kafir, he's going to go to the fire, he should come back to Islam. Well, these idiots were the ones who pushed him out of Islam in the first place by criticising him for doing the right thing. Right in whose eyes? Well, right in the eyes of the Sharia law of Islam, by condemning terrorism. So it's rather bizarre how some of the extremists are responding, and I've come across Mufassal Islam's videos. Apparently he's produced over 8,000. I have not seen 8,000 of his videos. It's a mixture of English and Bengali, so he's from my country of origin, Bangladesh. But I've probably seen over 100 videos he has produced in the last 2 years that I've got to know about this brother. Obviously, I do respect his knowledge on Islam. I've watched him engage in debate and discussions with Muslims, and all I can say is that the level of the standard, the really low standard set by Muslim speakers or debaters of Mufassal Islam have been very, very poor indeed. And I think some of the video responses have been really, really funny in a negative sense. So this one guy said, oh, what he is saying, and he said it in Bengali actually, what he was saying was all nonsense. You know, he's meant to say nonsense, but he misspoke and said nonsense, as if that's really going to, you know, hit the waves. Video, I think, by a really, really young guy. He was wearing earphones, I remember, and he was saying, well, and he was obviously moving around a little, and he was saying, by Mufassal Islam leaving Islam, that's his punishment. Well, again, that does not make sense whatsoever, because anyone has a right to change a religion. So if someone leaves Christianity and becomes a Muslim, is that a punishment from a Christian point of view? Yeah, probably is. Or if someone leaves Hinduism to become a Muslim, is that a punishment? No, you wouldn't say so. So if someone leaves Islam because they think it's not the correct path, they go to another religion or non-religion, you can't say this is a punishment. It does not make any sense, no logic to it. There was another young guy who said that he is like a sheep or a lamb. In Bengali, you say chagol. It's a slang word designed to insult people. These young guys, they just don't know how to approach someone like Mufassal Islam, who's had 30 years of experience in preaching Islam. He is a lawyer, he's very intelligent. So the responses have been very, very poor from the Muslim community. There have been one or two imams who did engage in dialogue, and it was very, very positive and really in support of that. I have purchased Mufassal Islam's book, which is called The Codex of a Murtad. Murtad means someone who's exited Islam. So The Codex of a Murtad, My Journey Out of Islam. So I've read that book. I need to read it in detail, but from what I sense is that it's just a rehash. All the arguments he's laid out is just a rehash of what Orientalists have said before and other critics of Islam. If you're wondering why someone like him, who preached for Islam for 30 years and suddenly was pushed out of Islam because he made a video against terrorism, against the terrorist attacks at Charlie Hebdo. Yeah, it seems quite bizarre, but I suppose different individuals will have different trigger points on why they would exit a certain religion. For those extremists, those Muslims who've condemned him, saying he's a kafir, he's an unbeliever, he's going to go to Jahannam, he's going to go to hell, you should be very, very careful. And this is for you, for those extremists who have threatened him and his family. That what makes you think you're going to heaven? Huh? What makes you think that? How can you be so arrogant? Muslims could also go to hell. Yeah? Even religious people could go to hell before going to heaven. So your destination will be the same if you think that Mufassal Islam is going to hell. And I never make a judgment, because things can happen at the very things can happen in the future that you're not aware of that would lead them to paradise. So I take a back step when condemning certain individuals. But it's a moment of reflection. We should look inwardly and think of what are we doing to make ourselves better and to lead us towards paradise. There will be believers who'll go to hell. So to think that Mufassal is going one way, you as extremists are going the other way, no, you could have the same destination. So be humble enough to admit that. And any sins that would be accumulated as a result of him exiting Islam, you're the ones you deserve. You're responsible for those sins. So inshallah, those sins will come to you as well, because you're the ones who pushed him out of Islam. So you have to be really, really wary when you start condemning people like him. That's not to say I agree with him. I don't, obviously, because I'm still a Muslim. And I have read his works, I've watched his videos, his debates, his lectures, his blogs, and of course I would disagree with him. And I think the only way to approach someone like Mufassal Islam is for someone to have a deep understanding of the Quran, of the Sunnah, of the Arabic language, and knowing what's happening in the modern world, etc. And that's the only way you can engage positively with ex-Muslims and atheists. Now, I don't know Arabic myself, so obviously if Brother Mufassal were to ask me certain questions, as he asked one of the debaters about the Quran, most likely won't be able to answer it. So for example, in a debate with, I think it was Mansour Investigates, he was asked the question, do you know what the 90th chapter of the Quran would be if the chapters were arranged in the order of revelation? So the Quran we have today is not in the order of revelation, it's not in chronological order. So obviously Mufassal Islam knows, and he thinks that if Muslims started reading the Quran in chronological order of revelation, they're going to exit Islam. I don't think so. But anyway, that's his claim, and clearly most Muslims will not be able to answer that question, you see. So what I would like to see to move this debate forward with ex-Muslims is someone knowledgeable within Islam to answer questions that have been raised by ex-Muslims. And when I read the books of other ex-Muslims, so for example Ibn Waraq, he wrote a book, Why I'm Not a Muslim, or Ayaan Hirsi Ali, The Caged Virgin. I've read and I've seen some of the lectures. What is quite consistent with these ex-Muslims is that when they were young, they asked questions and they never got satisfactory answers from the imams or the teachers, religious teachers. Also, Fatima Munisi, she wrote a book on women and Islam way back in the early 90s. She was a professor at a university in Morocco, the late Professor Munisi, and yeah, she seemed to condemn the Muslim culture in relation to men and women, the gender dynamics. And she too, when you look at her background, read her background when she was young, she used to ask questions, why is this happening? Why are these rules? Why these rules for women and these rules for men, etc.? And they never got satisfactory answers. So these doubts would be held in the psyche. So when they meet these challenges to Islam as they get older, obviously those doubts would resurface. Oh, they're going to clean the they're going to clean the floor, the marble floor, and it's great. They keep the floor really clean. So I think I'll have to move from this. But anyway, you've seen the holy, the mosque, the Prophet's Mosque. So I don't need to continue this video with this in the background. I just hope that one day, inshallah, God willing, you'll be able to visit this place, especially those of you who are non-Muslims, and one day. Well, sorry, yes, I just moved to the opposite side now. So behind you is actually the Prophet's Mosque. Behind me now is actually what is known as the Jannat al-Baqi. This is where the relatives and the companions of the Prophet are buried behind me. Whilst they're starting to sanitize the floor right in front of me, just make sure I don't get wet. Well, a big shout out to the workers, the unsung heroes who keep the mosques clean and sanitized for us guests to actually make use and benefit from being here. Anyway, I suppose what I just said is actually a lesson for all parents, is that when children ask questions, you should do your damn most to actually answer the questions, say, in a satisfactory way. Don't just say, oh, it's all because God says so, Allah says so, and you have to accept it. You need to give reasons for it. And also, it may appear that quite a huge number of Muslims are actually leaving Islam. I don't think that's the case. I think the exit from Islam, the apostasy from Islam, probably has been fairly consistent throughout the ages. Apostasy is mentioned in the Quran, so there is an awareness that people will leave Islam. I mean, to think, or when some Muslims think that, oh, it's impossible to leave Islam, oh, how can this happen? No, actually it can happen. We're humans, okay? One thing I was going to say was, I mentioned in the video yesterday when I was in Mecca that the Christian Europe and America should really thank Muslims for their business, and it's not just for the fact that Emirates Airlines, which was used as an example of how Muslims are influencing the world. It's still bizarre, but anyway, let's work with this. Let's play with this. That they buy from Boeing, from Airbus, so they're giving employment to engineers in the West, as well as recruiting staff from all over the world, Muslims and non-Muslims, so providing employment. I also mentioned about the arms sales. So Saudi Arabia, the Saudi government paid $700 billion after President Trump's visit for arms purchases, and I think they spent billions more to buy arms from Germany and from France and Britain as well. So they're keeping the jobs alive in those countries, and that's why I said, look, it's actually Christians who should be thanking Muslims for their business. But moving on further from that, before I made the video yesterday, I had a McDonald's just opposite the Kaaba compound, So Mecca is lovely, it's fine, it's halal, it's brilliant. And here in Medina, I just had a KFC before coming here and visiting the Prophet's grave. And as I look around the hotels, you have the Hilton, you've got the Millennium, you've got the Pullman, and yeah, you've got another Millennium there, you've got Movenpick. So many hotels, Western branded hotels here in the holiest of holies. And as I say, you've got KFC, Hardee's, had McDonald's. So this is globalization. You're having Americana here in the holiest of holies, and it's brilliant. I love it. So again, you should be thanking Muslims for giving these American franchises business, good, franchise fees. I'm sure that's going to their head offices. So that's something to think about. And I don't think this is all an Islamic takeover. It isn't. It's business. I mean, when McDonald's was spreading throughout the world, is that a spread of Christianity? When British Airways was expanding its airline, or American Airlines expanding its fleet, does that mean Christianity was being spread, or there was a Christian influence throughout the world? I can't see how. But in any case, with the advancement of technology, with the internet, satellite TV, there will be cross-cultural breeding. There'll be you can amass knowledge at the press of a button. So cultures will influence each other. And when the far right in Britain, in America, the far right, let's say, for example, being Tommy Robinson, and in America you've had Ann Coulter is probably one of the far right, Bridget Gabrielle, and they think that Islam is actually a threat to America, to Europe, which it isn't. I would say, and I did say yesterday, and let me repeat it, that Islam already had its influence hundreds of years ago in Europe when they transmitted a lot of the knowledge and the science from the Greeks, but they invented their own science, their own advancement in mathematics, medicine, geography, and astronomy, which have benefited the West. So it's really a much ado about nothing when the far right are worried about an Islamic influence. I remember Douglas Murray said, was it a few months ago, or it was one of the videos, he probably said that over a year ago, that we don't need any more Islam in the UK. Fine, no one is saying that you should want more or less of any religion, but they're clearly finding this to be a threat, and I understand why. I don't blame them, because with all the terrorist attacks that's happening, a lot of them, large proportion, are actually done by Muslims in recent times, in the last 2 decades or so. So they think that with all this immigration and refugees coming from Africa, that they're going to spread this extremism and hatred. And when you see these bombings happening, suicide bombings or knife attacks, you can understand why people are concerned about Islam. 2-3 decades ago, there were no issues about Sharia law. There was Sharia banking. HSBC had a really wonderful division of Sharia compliant banking. There was no worries or any concern about women wearing the face veil. There were no criticisms of Sharia courts that operate from a personal family law point of view in mosques. There were no issues then, no issues with regards to halal meat either. But because, thanks to those terrorists and those extremists, these issues are now coming to light and are seen as threats to a modern, Western, civilized society. So my advice to Muslims is be patient and just understand why they're having these concerns now, because these renegades are coming from within our midst. So this existential threat against Islam, it's not coming from America or the CIA or Mossad or Israel or Britain. It's actually coming from within, from Muslims who are extremists and terrorists. They are trying to destroy Islam from within. So be very wary. Target your anger where it should be targeted against these extremists. Assalamu alaikum from Dubai. A few days ago I recorded a message in response to Islamicize Me, produced by our Christian missionary brothers in America, which was to criticize parts of the Islamic faith, quoting various aspects and acting out some of the aspects of the hadith which were found to be rather questionable. So that was from Medina. A few days on now, I'm actually in Dubai, so you can see it's a lovely view of the sea. There's the Al Ain wheel. Some modern buildings have come up. And then if you come here, and my daughter Sharia is actually recording. Sharia means guidance, so there is a positive aspect to Sharia, by the way. And you can see this nice skyline, and the pink building over there is the Atlantis Hotel, which is on Palm Beach. And down there you see the beaches and the amusement. So the amusement arcades. Okay, so thank you very much. Right, so yeah, so why am I recording this from Dubai? Well, Dubai is another Muslim country, you can see. And the great thing about this is you see people from different cultures. You see Indians, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Africans, Europeans, British. I've seen British people here, Americans, Canadians, expatriates, our Christian friends who are expatriates and living in Dubai and working in Dubai and benefiting from Dubai. This is brilliant, I love it. And if there was a sort of concept that if Muslims are thinking of doing a video in response to Islamicize me, that would be globalize me. I think globalization is the way forward. And thank God for globalization, where ideas are fusing together, cultures are mixing together, which is really, really good. And as the Quran says in chapter 49, verse 13, which is my favorite verse in the Quran, and it happens to be Prime Minister Theresa May's favorite verse of the Quran, which she quoted at one of the Conservative Party conferences recently. So it says, "O mankind, we created you from a pair of a male and a female and made you into nations and tribes so that you may know each other and not despise each other. Verily, the most honoured amongst you in the sight of God is he who is most righteous." So I don't think anyone can actually disagree with that, whether you're a hardcore evangelist wanting Muslims to embrace Christ as part of the Trinity. You'd still have to agree that this verse is quite powerful and agreeable. So globalization is here to stay. Capitalism, which has benefited countries around the world and getting people out of poverty. So from a political point of view, capitalist conservatism. And in terms of religion, of course, as the Quran says, there is no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error. And whoever grabs the rope of God has grabbed the strongest handhold. I'm just paraphrasing, just quoting from memory. So we'll have different concepts of God. We have myriads of religions, but I'm sure we can agree, whether Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, that ultimately we have come from the Creator. We're going to go back to the Creator. And the only way of discovering which is the way forward will be through dialogue, debate, and that's been happening, but I think more of a positive engagement. I live in the UK, so UK is a great country. I'm originally from Bangladesh, a fast developing country, and I hope it is developed certainly within 20 to 30 years' time. Dubai happens to be one of my favourite destinations. So as a holiday, I'd certainly recommend you to come here to Dubai, and yeah, you will feel safe here. Even if you're a Christian, I don't know, Hindu, Buddhist, you will feel safe here. I haven't mentioned our Jewish brothers. I think they're the key here. So remember in my previous video I said the equivalent of Halal Hogan really should be Kosher Kirk, okay? Because kosher is still the thing in Christianity, or it should be. So Israel is not too far away from here, and I think the Muslim countries are on their way to recognizing the Jewish state of Israel. I think that is the right way forward. And one thing that people don't know about Israel is that they hold Sharia law alongside the secular laws in Israel and the halakha, the Jewish laws. They're all put on an equal footing. And also within Israel there are, I think, 9 Sharia courts that service the needs of Muslims. And this is a lesson, I think, for our European friends and American friends. Israel is light years ahead when it comes to recognizing Sharia law and actually catering for the Muslims. Not just the Muslims, of course, as I said, there are Jewish laws. And I think there are about 11 Christian courts servicing 11 different sects of Christianity within Israel. So when it comes to respecting religions, Israel is light years ahead of its European friends. And once the children of Isaac in Israel and the children of Ishmael here in the Middle East, the rest of the Middle East, the children of Abraham can unite together, going back to the Torah, going back to the Quran, then I think they can really take on the world. Okay, they can become a superpower. So inshallah, one day I hope that happens. But anyway, I do recommend Dubai as a holiday destination. Please do come, and to our Christian friends, the missionaries who produced that video, again, I would invite you to come to Mecca and Medina. Of course, there's some conditions that have to be fulfilled. You're halfway there. You just need a bit of a help forward, and to recognize the one God, the same God that Moses, Jesus, and all the Jewish prophets had preached, as well as the final revelation. It'll happen, don't worry, it'll take time, but dialogue is the way forward. Yes, debates are good, but I'm not really into too much of showmanship. It's more dialogue and understanding, and in this world of intolerance, I think we really need to unite in order to move forward. So thanks to my daughter Sharia, who's recording this video. Again, goodbye from Dubai. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you.